Chapter 22. Tomik Vrona. Tomik felt a bit self-conscious. Chamberlain Marie, the Firemind, and the Wanderer were all standing by waiting as Ral took his leave. Ral had once been so paranoid about letting anyone find out about the two of them. Now he walked up to Tomik and kissed him full on the lips in front of the goblin, the dragon, and the planeswalker. Truthfully, it felt like he was proving some kind of point to the three observers, and Tomik didn't particularly appreciate being a symbol or a tally mark or a moral victory or whatever. When Ral broke the kiss and saw the scowl on his lover's face, Ral's own face fell immediately. "I'm sorry," he said. I'm sorry." He kissed Tomik again, tenderly this time, and Tomik's ire quickly melted away. Ral had been damaged goods when they met, but he had come such a long way. "Be careful," Tomik said. "You be careful," Ral returned quietly, nervously. Tomik sighed. "Please tell me you're not still worried about conflicts of interest, or..." "It's not that. It was never that. Or at least, it hasn't been that for a while anyway." "Then what? You're not mad I'm helping Kaya?" "No. That's all I'm trying to do." "I know." "Then what?" Ral chuckled a little to himself. "I'm just being stupid. Please, don't make me reveal my stupidity out loud." "That's exactly what I'm making you do." "Tomik." "I'll conjure it out of you one way or another." "Tomik." "What are you afraid of? That once you get a taste of power, you think I'll be corrupted by it?" "No! Will you let me finish a sentence, please? I mean, if you're going to force me to spill my guts, the least you could do is let me spill them all at once." "Sorry." "Once you understand the true power of a guildmaster, I'm afraid you'll realize what a fraud I am. I'm afraid you'll realize you don't need me anymore." "Wow, you really are being stupid." "I told you." "Besides, you're the one who's a guildmaster. I'm just a temp." "You are many things, but certainly not that." They kissed again. It was excruciatingly delicious. Ral broke off and turned to face the others. Niv Mizzet, with Marie watching, said, "Don't screw this up, Zarek." Ral stared up at the dragon and ruefully replied, "I appreciate the encouragement." He turned to the Wanderer. "Ready?" He nodded. He turned back to Tomik and smiled, a little sadly. The Wanderer planeswalked away, presumably to Amonkhet in a violent slash of white light. Half a second later, Ral followed in an explosion of electrical sparks. Without a word, the living guild pack took wing and flew away. Chamberlain Marie walked off. Tomik was left alone to say a little prayer for his man. Chapter 23. Vraska. Vraska had wanted to go away for a week, but not like this. Not for this. Not with these people. Vivian Reed and Jaya Ballard waited, respectively, patient and impatient, to planeswalk with Vraska to Kaladesh to initiate what could be a prolonged hunt for Dovin Baan. And they were sneaking away now before Chandra Nalar and Jace could return from Theros. "Jace will return and find me gone. Not a great way for us to start our lives together." A week on Vryn with Jace had sounded lovely. An unspecified period of time hunting the Vidalcan was considerably less appealing. But such was the life of a queen, a highly compromised queen. She was giving last-minute instructions to her two staunchest allies within the swarm, Stora of the Erstwhile and Azdomus, leader of her Crawl Honor Guard. "You'll be in charge," she told the latter. "I vest you with my authority until I return." The insect clicked in his throat to acknowledge the command. I will do my best to be worthy of this trust, my queen, but please do not stay away too long, Storov said in her hushed, whispered voice. Matkazoni and the Devarkin will attempt to take advantage of my presence. Believe me, I know. I'll return as soon as I possibly can. For more reasons than one. Storov bowed her head, and as Damas clicked, Vraska turned to her two planeswalking companions. Gaia said, Ready? Ready. Gaia vanished in a brief conflagration of red flames. Vivian departed in a burst of ghostly green light. Vraska latched onto their mana trails and followed, fading into shadow. If I can find him, Bond's as good as dead. Chapter 24. Rat. Madame Blaise bowed her head and said, Welcome back, Master Teo. Am I correct in assuming that Mistress Rat is here as well? Mistress Rat? Me? Mistress? So strange. She's right beside me, Teo said. Madame Blaise squinted toward the empty space to Teo's right and said, Welcome back, Mistress Rat. Since Rat was to Teo's left, he said, The other side, Madame. Ah, yes, of course. She turned her squint into Rat's direction. Rat nudged Teo and said, Tell her I'm not that tall. She's looking clear over my melon. Teo raised his hand and placed it atop Rat's head. Rat's about this tall, Madame. He lowered his hand to Rat's eye level. And her eyes are about here. Then as an afterthought, he added, They're violet. For a brief second, a knowing smile might have flashed across Madame Blaise's face. Not on her mouth so much, but in her eyes. But it was soon gone as she lowered her gaze and squinted again, trying hard to focus on the girl in front of her. Ultimately, she sighed and said, I'm sure her eyes are lovely, but as yet I cannot see them. Still, I shan't give up. I'll spot her one of these days. Quickly corrected herself. I'll spot you one of these days, mistress. Maybe, which doesn't seem too likely, whatever what Mistress Kaya has in mind for me. Just then, that mistress stalked in with Chief Bilagru. An eager and anxious rat ran up to her. Mistress Kaya, why did you tell Teo to bring me back? The guildmaster held her off with a slightly raised hand as she finished with the giant. During my absence, I expect your full allegiance to be with acting Guildmaster Vrana. Of course, mistress. He'll require your protection, as much from internal threats as external. Don't I know it? No fears on his account, mistress. I'm somewhat fond of the boy. In fact, he's the reason... He trailed off, unsure how to respectfully continue. Mistress Kaya helped him out. He's the reason you're loyal to me now, she said with a smile. Chief Bilagru growled something deep in his throat. That's fine, she said. So, are you going after Miss Vess? Rat asked, barely able to contain herself. And the plan is still to drop Teo off on Gobakan first? Teo stared at the ground, but Mistress Kaya looked Rat in the eye and said, Yes. This meant Rat was now facing exactly the kind of goodbye she was hoping to avoid with her two friends, her only friends. Why did you bring me back? She whispered, looking away. Rat, I said my goodbyes last night. You may have slept through them, which might have been kinda rude of me, but this was far more unkind, mistress, to make Teo drag me back if you were both simply going to leave anyway. Mistress Kaya stroked a kind hand against Rat's cheek. Rat, I wouldn't do that. The girl looked up with a vague notion of hope, just as Madame Blaise announced. Mr. Tomic Vrona? Kaya glanced at Rat and said, "Just be patient for a moment longer." A somewhat exasperated Rat nodded helplessly. "I hate being patient, but what choice do I have?" "I've prepared the ritual," Mr. Vrana said. "How involved is it?" Mistress Kaya said. "It's surprisingly simple, and involves very little blood." "It involves blood?" Kayo asked, appalled. "Very little," Mr. Vrana repeated. "Let's just get it over with," Mistress Kaya said. "Follow me." Mr. Vrana led Mistress Kaya out of her suite, with Chief Belagru, Madame Blaze, Teo, and Rat tagging along behind, to a small conference room that the chief barely fit into, where 3 identical scrolls were spread across a table. Beside them were a pen, an inkwell, and a ceremonial kris with an ebon handle and a wavy blade of loxodon ivory. Mr. Vrana picked up the kris and said, "Your left hand, please." Mistress Kaya frowned slightly. "Do you plan to remove it with that?" "Nothing quite so drastic." She lifted her hand. He gently steadied it, and then quickly jabbed the tip of the kris into the tip of her middle finger. He then moved her hand over to the inkwell, allowing exactly 3 drops of Mistress Kaya's red blood to mix with the black liquid within. As soon as he had released her hand, Madame Blaze stepped forward and, with 3 whispered words, healed the tiny punctured mark on her mistress's finger. Kaya raised an eyebrow, and Madame Blaze said, "Well, what kind of servitor would I be if I couldn't heal something as simple as that, I ask you?" "Thank you, Blaze." "My pleasure, mistress. My honor." While this little exchange of niceties was going on, Mr. Vrana had repeated the finger jabbing on his own left middle finger with 3 drops of his own blood mixed with the ink as well. Using the pen, he stirred the inkwell, then, one by one, signed each of the 3 parchment scrolls. He handed the pen to Mistress Kaya. She reached for it, but he pulled it back slightly, saying, "I've seen the way you sign things. You'll need to add more of a flourish. Your name is short, and if you sign it simply as you usually do, it wouldn't be sufficient. The spell requires more traction on the parchment to do its work." "Seriously?" "Quite." He nodded and took the pen. She approached the first scroll with some hesitation. "I should read these, shouldn't I?" "Probably," he said, "but I doubt it would help you. The contract incantation is written in the best Orzhov legalese. It would take years of study as an advocate to truly decipher its ramifications. Fortunately, I've had years of study as an advocate, so if you trust me." He nodded absently, but didn't sign. "Is there another problem?" he asked. "Yes. You've got me overthinking my signature now." "Goddess. It's 1 word, 4 letters. What exactly do you expect?" "You could employ your last name." "No, I really can't." Before he could speak, she held up a hand. "It's complicated, but trust me, for now, I may only go by Kaya." He waved his hand in the air. "Then, just get a little fancy with it." "Please, just sign, mistress," a semi-desperate Rat said. The prolonged wait for the answers she sought was making her antsy. Mistress Kaya nodded again and leaned over the first scroll. She signed, finishing off the final A with a circle surrounding the entire name. "Will that do?" "Yes, mistress," he said. She quickly signed the other 2 contracts in the same fashion. By the third, she had gotten quite good at it. Mr. Verona took the pen from her and placed it on the table beside the kris. He then took her left hand in his, picked up the inkwell with his right hand, and poured the ink blood mixture over both their left hands while chanting something low and ancient. Instead of spilling, the liquid was absorbed into their skin. The writing on the central scroll disappeared from its parchment and began to manifest like tattoos on their left hands and all the way up their arms. As the writing faded from or was absorbed back into their epidermises, Mistress Kaya inhaled deeply and straightened up to her full height, a broad smile manifesting on her face. Simultaneously, Master Vrana's shoulders stooped. He cringed and groaned. "It worked. I'm free," Mistress Kaya said. "The debtor's contracts, they're—" She turned and looked at him, and her smile faded rapidly. "Yes, I feel them. I have them. The burden is somewhat worse than what I anticipated." Mistress Kaya shook her head. "I tried to warn you." "Yes, you did." "Well, let's undo this. We'll find another way." "No, mistress. I can handle it. Comic, you're my friend, and I wouldn't burden my worst enemy with this." "It's only temporary. I can tough it out." He straightened up to his full height. "You'll see. I'll make you proud. That's not the issue. It'll be fine." "Are you certain?" "Quite certain, mistress." "Am I to call you master now? Or can we both just use our names?" "Comic would suit me fine, Kaya." "Thank you. Thank you for everything. I'm happy I can be of service. I was raised to be a servitor, you know." Madame Blaise shook her head and murmured, "A servitor as acting guildmaster. Who could have predicted such a thing?" She approached him, took his left hand and performed her bit of healing magic on his finger. "Thank you, madame." "I'm happy to be of service, master," Madame Blaise echoed. "I'll see you off now," Master Vrana said. "Mistress Kaya, please," pleaded Rat, with her voice, her eyes, her entire posture. "All right, follow me," Mistress Kaya said and led her growing entourage back to her suites, where, taking Rat by the hand, she lowered the young girl into an overstuffed armchair and sat down on the matching chair across from her. "Now, child, listen." "I'm listening. I've been ready to listen for hours and hours and hours." Teo said, "I've only found you and told you there was something to hear about an hour ago." Rat glared at him. He started to laugh and then covered his mouth. All right, Mistress Kaya said, smiling. "Here's the thing." Suddenly, the room was filled with red flames, and Miss Jaya Ballard appeared amid them. Belagru reached for his weapon, but Mistress Kaya rose and waved him back as the blaze was sucked right back into Miss Ballard, and she stumbled forward weakly. Teo had to catch her and help her onto a settee. Rat leaped to her feet in a front of frustration. "You have got to be kidding me. Not now." Mistress Kaya said, "Jaya, are you all right?" Fine. I've planeswalked back and forth, and back today from Kaladesh." "You must be exhausted." "It's a lot. But give me a minute, or 10, and I can lead you to Liliana's home on Dominaria." "We're not going straight to Dominaria. We need to go to Gobakan first, to bring Teo home." "No," Miss Ballard said firmly. "No detours. I need get this over with." "It's not up for debate, Jaya. Teo's never planeswalked with intention before. I promised him I'd help him, and I mean to keep that promise." Teo frowned and looked tense. Rat could feel his concerns, and momentarily forgetting her own, said, "He's afraid his abbot may not welcome him back." Teo gaped at her with wide eyes. "Well, am I wrong?" "No." "Okay then." Mistress Kaya tried to reassure him. That's why the three of us will be there to explain things for you. Miss Ballard, not seeing Rat, asked, "Three of us?" Now it was Rat's turn to gape with wide eyes. "Three of us?" With clear satisfaction, Mistress Kaya smiled at Rat and stated, "Three of us." Once again, she took Rat's hands in hers. "I know you're very lonely. I wouldn't say, and I know you manage your condition the best you can, but it doesn't change the fact that you spend most of your life in a kind of solitary confinement. And with Hikara's situation changing, well, it's just not fair." Aw, everyone's got what they've got to deal with, I guess. They do, but something about what you deal with reminds me a little of myself when I was just a little bit younger than you are now. Besides, I owe you. You saved my life. More than once. Yesterday. More important, I flat out like your company. Who in the nine hells is she talking to? Miss Ballard asked. No one answered or explained. Rat wiped at her eyes and said, "There's some pity involved in this. I kinda never wanted to be an object of pity, you know?" "Do you want to hear my plan or not?" Mistress Kaya asked wryly. "Oh, I want to hear." "Okay, so, here's the thing. Normally, Planeswalkers can't take anything or anyone organic across the blind eternities to another world." Miss Ballard eyed her suspiciously. "What do you mean normally?" "I'm the exception. I can safely take one person or creature by ghosting into my spirit form and simultaneously extending my necromagic to include my passenger, much as I do when I extend my magic over my dagger or my clothes." "You cannot," Miss Ballard and Rat said, almost simultaneously, though with different tones. "I can though. I first did it by accident with my cat Jana, who jumped into my arms at the precise moment I was about to planeswalk. Cat? Rat? Same principle. I can go with you if you want, but I have to warn you, the process is exhausting and dangerous. Still, if all goes well, I should be able to bring you back to Ravnica after the job to kill Liliana Vess has been completed." Rat glanced over at a frustrated Teo and swallowed hard. He wasn't really on board with the killing of Miss Ravenhair, who had, after all, killed Bolus. On the other hand, a lot of Ravnicans died because of her, and by the code of the clan she was raised in that meant Miss Vess deserved death. But the part of Rat that felt a kinship with Celestia wasn't quite as sure. On the fourth hand, my Rakdos side thinks the trip will be a blast, you know? And more than that, I get to stay with my friends. Mistress Kaya asked, still worried whether I'm motivated by pity? Is it horrible that I don't care? No. Then I can live with what motivates you. Good. But for the record, sympathy and empathy are not the same as pity. Not really. And again, I think you're damn useful in a crisis. I like being useful. I know. Miss Ballard cleared her throat. I take it there's someone else here that I can't see. Madame Blaze, of all people, attempted to explain. It's Mistress Rat, a close friend of Guildmaster Kaya's. She's invisible and unhearable to most people, though I'm told, if you know where she is, presumably right in front of Mistress Kaya at the moment, and focus, you might be able to see her. I've been trying, however, and haven't succeeded yet. Uh-huh, Miss Ballard said, already sounding somewhat grim. Kaya? And Rat? You should think twice about this. I've seen ghosts die in the blind eternities. This is a dangerous game you're playing at, or talking about playing at. I'm not playing, Mistress Kaya said, but she's right, Rat. This is extremely risky. I want to make sure you understand that. And Ravnica is so safe? Rat asked. It's safer now than it was yesterday, particularly for you. You know how to operate here. As Ra would say, you have the place wired. That won't be true on other worlds like Gobakon and Dominaria, and that's assuming you make it to either or both alive. Are you taking back the offer? No, then I'm going with you. With both of you. Teo asked, do you need to tell your mother first? Nah, she's used to not seeing me for weeks at a time. And if I don't survive, she'll eventually forget all about me. And maybe that would be for the best. No sense in her suffering over my loss. Not such a great loss anyway, right? We can go right now, if you want. Mistress Kaya looked to Miss Ballard. You up to a planeswalk? Miss Ballard rose stiffly. I suppose, but I've never been to this Gobakon. I can't lead you there. I haven't been there either. So, Teo, you'll have to show us the way. Teo looked panicked. I don't know how. I've only ever planeswalked once before, and I've never done it on purpose. I have no idea how to get to Gobakon. You do, though, Mistress Kaya said. Just think of home. Summon your, geometry, and decide you're going back. It'll work, and we'll be right behind you. Trust me. I trust you, he said, sounding very much like he didn't, or didn't trust himself not to mess it up. Rat, come here. Put your arms around my waist. Rat did as instructed, and Mistress Kaya wrapped her cloak around them both tightly. And she put her arms around Rat's back and pulled her close. Go, Teo, she said. Just think of your home on Gobakon. Rat turned her head to face Teo, who closed his eyes. Then he seemed to explode within translucent spheres of cylinders and cubes. His body reduced to its elementary geometry. The shapes rapidly popped away, and he was gone. Miss Ballard followed suit in flame. Mistress Kaya warned, keep your eyes shut tight, and whatever happens, do not let go. Understand? Uh-huh, Rat said breathlessly. Then, with a nod to Madame Blaze, Chief Belagru, and Master Vrana, Mistress Kaya's entire body turned violet and incorporeal, with the field of her magic extending through her to encompass Rat as well. A second later, they'd left Ravnica behind.